thank you for stopping by. I'm so glad you're here. In this video, I'm going to be going through the process of making a shirt using a vintage unprinted pattern from the 1930s. This simplicity pattern to be specific. I've mentioned this project a few times in my Friday Sews videos, and I am finally finished with it and super excited to share the process. The fabric that I'm using for this project is this yellow cotton. I'm not sure how to describe the weave. It's a little bit looser with some texture to it. You can kind of see it a little bit better from the back side. And you can also see when you look at the selvage that there are some blue threads in this. The last version of this shirt that I made was using a blue fabric that had the exact same properties. So when I found it in yellow, I really wanted to make another shirt using the yellow fabric because I really like the comfort and sort of coolness that the blue fabric was giving me during the summer without being too silky or soft. I like my clothing to have just a little bit of texture to it. So I'm super happy with this fabric, and I knew I wanted to make another shirt out of it. Because this pattern is so old, I already traced off all of the pieces onto separate paper. That way I don't need to pull anything out of the original packaging. Also, I have a pretty good idea of the assembly process, so I didn't really need to look at the instructions for it. Like I said before, I have finished this shirt already. It is right here actually. And that's not how I normally do these videos. But what happened this time is that I had way too many videos in the pipeline at once. So last week I had 3 videos, a vintage shirt that was a button front, like a bib front shirt, going through cleaning and oiling a Singer 327, a Friday Sews video. Then I started on another Friday Sews video and this one, and I had all of those different videos in the pipeline at the same time. And I just got sort of overwhelmed with all the different clips and footage. So after I put a few videos up, I went through to just clean everything out, right? So what happened is I thought that all of my video clips before a certain date were for older videos that had already had a final product produced. And when I have a final version of a video, I just keep the final version and I delete all of the clips and everything so it doesn't take up as much space on my computer. And I just deleted all of the video clips from before a certain date. But what I forgot is that I was filming for this video interspersed with filming for the previous videos, and some of the beginning footage of this shirt video got deleted. So I'm just going to try something different and let's see how it goes. I'm going to watch through the footage that I do have of me making the shirt and do a commentary. And I'm going to try to do that on camera rather than as a voiceover. And let's see how this goes. If anybody has any opinions on this video and this format, please let me know. So let's dive into this and see how it turns out. Here I'm just going through and tracing all of the pattern pieces off onto the fabric, making sure I transfer any important markings. And I just use pattern weights to hold everything down. Sometimes that's just easier than going through and pinning everything. Now I'm going through and cutting out the pieces using my heavy shears. I found that they do a really good job of cutting through textured fabric. Now it was time to start on the zipper, and this is the process that was a little bit weird. So what I did was start by making a facing that the right side of the fabric will face inward, like towards my chest. And then I attached the zipper on to the facing to where the wrong side of the zipper faced towards my chest and the right side of the zipper faced outward and match up with the wrong side of the facing. Then I took the front of the shirt and I put a separate facing on it, like another smaller facing. And then I put the inside facing with the zipper facing outward up against the center front slash of the shirt. So the zipper front was facing outward and was sort of sandwiched in between the front and the facing of the fabric. If that sounds like an overly complicated process to you, then you are absolutely right, and I'm not going to do it that way again. But I wanted to follow the original instructions one more time, just to see how I liked it. Moving on to assembling the back of the shirt, I just did some hand gathering using basting stitches, which I'm terrible at, but I did my best. And then I pinned the back yoke onto the back piece, and I'm getting ready to sew these two together. My gathering always looks great until I actually start sewing, and then the presser foot, you know, sort of pushes it back and pushes all of the gathering to the end of the project, and it ends up bunched on one side. So I really need to get a walking foot. I think that would probably help my gathering tremendously. After I had machine basted the yoke onto the gathered back, I went ahead and put the yoke facing on there and made a little sandwich and stitched them all together, and then turned them up and then top stitched everything down just to keep it nice and organized. Then I went through and did the shoulder seams, so that has the front of the shirt, the back yoke, and the yoke facing all together, and I'm just stitching them all down. Then it was time to insert the collar, And I sort of improv'd this from the original collar. It is a one-piece collar that I interfaced and then folded in half, which was the original style, rather than being two collar pieces that you stitch together and turn inside out. You fold it in half, stitch the sides down, and then turn it inside out. But I redrafted the size of it and just to make a really short collar, and I'm pretty happy with it. It worked out pretty well. What didn't work out so well is my measurements, so it ended up being, short on top, and then there was an extra layer on the underside that stuck down farther than the actual seam level. So on this part, I decided to go through and baste down that lower collar and then use my very dubious hand sewing skills to just whip stitch it down. I thought that'd be a great idea. And it was a great idea until I put it on, and then you can see right here that you've got the collar and then you've got like another half an inch, 5/8 of an inch underneath where I did that line of whip stitching. So it just drew the collar in even more and made it taller, and it just looks very strange. So I had to go through and unpick all of that whip stitching I did, and it looks much better there. There are a couple of spots in the collar where the fabric is gathered up a little bit, and I'm not super happy with them, but I'm not terribly upset. This is just an informal summer fun shirt, so I'm not too upset about it not being perfect. Now it's time to attach the sleeves, and this is always my favorite part of the project because it starts bringing things together. I'm just always careful to sort of pin things on similar to the shape that they're going to be sewn into, and that helps things match up better. So you can see originally the sleeve was really too low here, so what I needed to do was bring that up a good inch or two. So I just went in and took more distance off the seam allowance, and that brought the sleeve into a better position. It still doesn't look great in this picture, but once I get the side seams in, it looks fine. My normal finish is just to use an overcast foot and a zigzag stitch, but because I'm using this Singer 327, I don't have an overcast foot for it, and I didn't like the way the zigzag looked on its own, so I finished the seams with a serger, and then just finished with my normal process where I press them down to one direction and then top stitch them. If I'm doing a short sleeve shirt, I usually like to hem the sleeves before I sew the side seams up. That just makes it easier, and I don't have to break out the free arm or anything on it. It just makes it much simpler for me to keep things straight. I just have to be careful that I don't end up with like a weird sort of V where the seam meets. That tends to happen sometimes when I hem them first if I'm not super careful. But I'm just using some fusible hem tape to hold everything in place before I stitch it down. And I'm doing the process on either sleeve and also on the bottom of the shirt. It works out really well with this shirt because of the rounded bottom to it. I haven't been able to do a good job getting this rounded hem without using fusible tape. It just holds everything in place so well. So here I'm sewing the side seams. This is the very last step. Finishing these seams the same way I did all the others, serging them off, pressing them to one side, and top stitching them down. This was a quick and fun shirt to make, and I hope that it's going to be a quick and fun shirt to wear. So let me put that on so we can see what it looks like, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. All right, this is it. I am really, really loving this shirt. I really love the original blue version I made of it, so I am happy that I like this one as much. Something that is a little bit weird about this is the arm length, and I do this with a lot of my own shirts that I make for myself. The short sleeve ones, I give them a strange arm length. It's a little bit longer than a normal short sleeve. It's not quite a 3/4, definitely not a long sleeve. I just like them to hit right above my elbow. I just like the way it wears, and it gives it a little bit of a different look. Something that says this is custom, like unique, this is not bought from the store. I really like making my own clothes. I'm very proud of what I do, and I'm always very proud to tell people that my clothing is homemade. So I like to put little details like this sort of strange sleeve length in that just sort of are clear signifiers that this clothing is homemade. Men's shirts don't really change that much over time, but because this is an older sewing pattern from the 1930s, some of the details are very reminiscent of an older style, even going back to the 19th century. I'm thinking things like this sort of half-rounded front facing, the shape of the bottom and the sides of the shirt. It's very much an older style. It was also originally meant to be very, very baggy, much more so than modern shirts are. I tapered it in quite a bit, and older men's shirts were much, much baggier. But because this was early 20th century, they were experimenting with new things, like giving the option of a zipper front closure, which I think is really cool. Another option would be to use soutache to make little button loops and buttons, which is very much an older style. All in all, I've got a great new shirt for summer. I'm loving this yellow. It's a very bright, happy color. I am interested to see what it does over time, if the yellow will fade, and if any of the blue will come out from the cross threads. The fabric is really cool and breathable, and it has a nice balance between texture and softness that I really like. I really appreciate everyone who has watched this video. If you liked it, please let me know by leaving a like. And if you have not already, please consider subscribing. I hope that you will come back to watch my next video, where I will either be making Barbie clothes using this toy sewing machine from the 1950s, or I will be using a sewing kit from 1980 to make a pullover. And if you want to see everything that's in that kit, you can watch my previous Friday Sews video number 3. I'm so glad y'all stopped by, and I will see you in the future.